Okay, that's fine. Rebuttal?
Be
Okay.
able to not die. Okay.
Elaborate on what do you mean by not dying?
Not dying of embarrassment when I read my terrible writing.
When you read your case? What's embarrassing about that? Just say
I
your
think she's
partner
talking about
wrote
reading
it.
her blocks.
Reading your blocks? Oh.
Yeah, for rebuttal, right?
I thought she was talking about case because she said reading your own writing. You don't typically like. I mean, you could script out blocks, I guess, but
Yeah. Wait, Jacqueline, you're a first speaker, right?
I'm the second speaker. Juliana's the first speaker.
Okay, I see. So, were you talking about rebuttal or were you talking about like find a focus?
Both.
Okay.
okay. So
okay,
what part of it's like you feel like you're dying?
Probably especially rebuttal because I don't know, it's just scary.
Scary? Okay. So then like in rebuttal, what do you find like difficult to do? Like why is rebuttal so scary for you? Like I guess.
I'm scared of not being able to like do the research quick enough.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of like doing your research quick enough, that's why we have block files, where you basically can pre-write or at least have an idea of like simple answers to every generic argument on a topic. So that's stuff that you'll probably have done before the round. And that's why, like, as a team, everybody works together to create a big block file. So it's not just you researching, but it's you plus like the other 3 or 4 teams that are also researching to make a good block file. So if you're scared about not having answers to things, you shouldn't be in the future. And starting now, you should try to like before you go into a round, have a substantial block file where you can look things up that you need answers to, or you'll have answers prepared. But obviously that's not going to cover every argument, right? Someone's going to bring a back argument that you've never heard before. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, all the examples I think of are like not appropriate, but like in essence, there's gonna be some wacky things out there, and 3 minutes, 3 minutes is how long summary is. And in terms of when you hit those wacky arguments, we can do drills to practice logical responses, or right? Is that what we call them, Sabine? Karina?
Oh my god.
Right. Hey, you know I suck at names.
Yeah, sure. It's that.
Wait.
What was your
is
question?
It logical? No, analytical rebuttals, right?
It's analytical. Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about?
Analytics, yeah. Okay, I haven't done debate in like what 4 months now.
Okay,
sure. So we do things called analytical rebuttals, where instead of having a pre-written response, we'll do a drill where you try to come up with responses off the top of your head that are just based in logic or facts you already know. So like no research, just logic. So if you're worried about not having responses, we can definitely work on that with those sorts of drills. Aside from that, do you guys have any other things you guys want to work on?
You guys are 6th graders, right?
Yep.
Do you have difficulties with like filling up the time or like knowing what to say during the speeches?
I hope not.
Have you guys had a practice debate yet?
No, we're still writing our case.
Okay, so have you ever debated before?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Also for Juliana, you are allowed to search up responses during a debate, but it's better to prepare all the responses beforehand. And even then, like even if you don't have a response prepared, it's better instead of searching on the internet, it's better just to analytic it and like think of a logical response because if you're trying to find a statistic for an argument during a round, it'll take a lot more time and it'll probably be a lot more confusing to you and the judge than if you were just to do like an analytic or logical rebuttal.
Right, but there's like, and that's true for like almost every situation. But if you end up having the time, like, let's say, what's a good scenario for this? Okay, so let's say you read the case. You guys are speaking first. So and let's say you're the first speaker. You read your case. You sit down, and your opponent starts reading his or her case, or their case, and you hear something that seems untrue or seems a little suspicious. Since if you're good at flowing or if you're good at just writing, taking notes, especially at like early stages of debate, people will have a lot of filler content, so you don't have to actually take notes on everything. So you'll have time to like look things up, or even like during the rebuttal, you'll have time to look things up, and then you can tell that to your partner to mention in rebuttal. That's like probably the only scenario where you'll have the time to look something up in the debate. Anytime after that, like I would almost always just default to just analytics because you just won't have the time.
Because you miss a lot too, and researching like during the round is a lot harder than you think. Yeah.
Like Karina said, you really can't not listen to the summary speech. You can kind of get away with the rebuttal, but not really. But you can definitely get away with the cases though. So like, if it's after the cases, I wouldn't recommend looking things up.
Wait, should we should one of us be listening and the other one be researching, and like we have a call on the side? Like,
No.
No,
Both of you guys should be taking notes and listening. Researching is like a last resort. I'll give you an example where I researched something up. Somebody made a statement saying invaded Syria again. Well, he pulled it. They said he didn't. So like that's a case where like you can do research just to like make sure that your knowledge isn't like wrong, because they were making a false statement. So like I just researched and looked it up really quick to make sure when I stood up in Crossfire and targeted them about it, I wasn't making like myself sound dumb by like saying something that's not true, right? So those are the scenarios where you can look things up. Like if you doubt something that they say, 99% of the time or 95% of the time, you shouldn't be doing that. You should just be taking notes and thinking of logical responses. And the reason why you shouldn't have to like research things is because before the round starts, before you even go to a tournament, you should have extensively researched the topic, or at least know enough about the topic to have every argument on the top of your head. And if you have that and you have a block file that has some responses to everything, you shouldn't need to look things up during round. Right, Karina, how long are we gonna do this for?
If you can go first if you need. I can stay because I don't have anything else to do like for the next hour, so I can stay as long as they need.
Okay, I can stick around for a bit more.
Yeah, don't you enjoy talking to people? So wait, did you cover tips for taking notes?
I wasn't sure how much we were supposed to do today. We can do that if you guys want to. Did anyone ever teach you guys on so we call taking notes flowing. So has anyone ever taught you guys how to flow in a round?
We flow like because we're asked to, but I don't know like the exact instructions of like how to flow or the right way to do it, but I do it, but I don't know if I do it right. Like,
Okay. What's a good way to like?
Do you want to share your screen, Evan? If like you have an example on hand, like an Excel sheet. Wait, I have an Excel sheet on hand.
You have one?
Yes,
I mean, I kind of don't want to encourage Excel flowing though. It's like
that's true. Wait, but it's like the basic structure, right?
but Excel flowing is different.
That's true.
It's pretty different. I tossed all my flows away because I didn't want to.
Wait, I have a lot of flows. I can
Okay.
take
Can you like take a photo and then just like drop it in the chat? I guess in the meantime,
Wait,
you guys
okay,
just
yeah. Can you just explain to them like basically like what flowing is?
yeah. So I'll just go speech by speech. Let me. Here, I'm gonna share my screen. Alright, let's just open up Word. Okay, if that opens up. But I'll just explain how you want to take notes for your each speech in the debate round. And like things to especially listen for. And then after Karina gets her piece of paper, we can
I don't even know if you can see it. I sent it, but I don't know if you can see it. It's like really shaky.
Okay.
you have nice handwriting.
That's really not nice handwriting, but thank you.
The goal isn't to have nice handwriting.
It depends on who you're asking. If you're asking Evan Kim, of course it's not good handwriting.
Okay, but you know my debate handwriting is like not as good as my normal handwriting. Is there a way to rotate images?
I'll rotate it for you. Hold on, let me send a new
Oh,
one.
I figured it out. Don't worry about it. Here, can you guys see my screen? I have the thing displayed.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this, let's see, what debate topic is this for? Okay, I don't even know what it is. Whatever, it's fine. The way you flow in just the structure of this piece of paper is like the first thing you'll notice is Karina used a like that's not a normal piece of paper, like normal piece of computer paper. It's a bit longer. We call it, I think it's called legal paper.
Legal paper, yeah. I
But,
bought
like,
it in LA.
It's not required. A lot of people just flow on normal pieces of paper. It just means you have to write smaller, and her handwriting's not exactly that small. So yeah, that's probably why
It's
she's
smaller
using
than
legal paper.
yours.
No, mine is actually really small if I want to.
Wait, also, Evan, use the round 5. I sent a second image. It's clear. You can actually see the contention stuff.
Oh, okay. I'll use that
Yes.
one instead.
Nice background.
Okay. All right. So contention 1 was funding. So here, wait, is this a pre-flow, or are you guys? Were you, or is this their case?
This was Nats round 5. This was their case. We were.
Oh, how was Nats? How's Nats?
Nats was bad. I'll tell it to you afterwards. Explain.
Okay, cool. So I don't know the Nats topic, but so the first contention, charter schools. Are you serious? It was about charter.
Yes.
God, that's
all the
terrible.
most important education stuff, they thought charter schools was the most important.
That's a terrible topic. I think that was a middle school debate topic at some point. I think I remember judging a charter schools topic. Huh. Either way, okay, so you'll notice that here. Wait, why is Ned green? Okay, whatever, it's fine. So here, Karina has 2 distinct colors, or she's using 3, I guess. But whenever you flow, you want to use 2 different colors. One for your side. Let's say hypothetically, if you're AF, in this case, Karina's using red, and for the neg team, she's flowing in green. Does it make sense? Like you will always want to use at least 2 different colors. And you can use a third color to just circle things that are important. I use a highlighter, but whatever, right? Like it doesn't matter. It's just the idea is you want to have 2 distinct colors so it's easier to like distinguish the arguments. So the very left of this page is the constructive or the neg case. So this is the opponent's first speech. Here, and you wait, have you guys learned on how like cases are structured? So you guys like know like contention, link, impact, right? Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Do you guys know like for cases like there's a contention and then inside the contention there's like links and then impacts? Have you guys learned about that yet, or should I explain that?
We know.
Okay, cool. So in this case, at the top, Karina wrote down contention 1 funding. That's probably not the exact name of what the contention name was when the opponents read it. They probably said was something like, oh, that was? Okay, well, they're good. It's Nats, right? But like in a typical round, people are going to have not the best names of contentions. It'll be like like funding problems for charter schools. You don't want to write all that. You just write funding P dot or like something, right? Just abbreviate as much as possible. And then right after that, you'll notice she put an L. So an L is she's using that as shorthand for link. I put an arrow, but like everyone has their own like flowing style, right? And I think this one says, Karina, what does that say? Police away?
No, take away.
Oh, take away.
It's
okay.
like taking away from public funding.
Oh, okay. So and then the first link here is about how if you spend money on charter schools, you're taking money away from other things, right? And then right after, so that's the first link that the opponents are probably talking about. So she indicates that, and then right after that, I think that's Simon, and I'm pretty sure that's just a piece of evidence, right? So you do evidence with the box, right? Like
yeah.
Okay, cool. So she indicates evidence by putting like a what do you call those? Like a corner, I guess. I don't know.
A
Drawing
corner
that.
box. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Other people do different things. Like I'll underline. But the goal is if you have the time, write down the author's last name and the date. So the opponent might say Simon from the Washington Post in 2019 explains. Then if you have the time, you want to write down Simon 19.
Yeah.
In this case, I don't think she had the time. That's fine. If you don't have the time to write even the author name, like at the end of the priority list is first get down the author name. Second is the date. But if you can't get anything down, just draw a line, or in this case, a quarter box, just so you know that a piece of evidence was read. Even if it's blank, you just want to indate it.
If you can't spell their name, just write it like what it sounds like to you. I've heard like lovely or something like that. Just write like if I heard that, I would just write like R-O like bubbly. Like just write what it sounds like it would be. I was terrible at the spelling bee, but if you know what it is, then that's really all you need.
Yeah, like Russian last names are a nightmare. But
That's
yeah.
Racist.
No, but they really are a nightmare to spell. Like, you know how long they are?
Yeah.
Okay, either way. And then after that, after
No, pause. For the evidence, your first goal is to get down the information, like the important information the card says, because they're reading evidence to tell you a piece of information, right? So you want to make sure you have what the information says. So yeah.
I was gonna get to that, but it's okay. So yeah. So like I said, if you don't have the time to write the author's name or date, don't just draw an arrow or whatever, or some some way to indicate that a piece of evidence was read. Right after you do that, and the reason why you might run out of time is, like Karina said, the most important thing to get down is what the evidence actually talks about. So right after you however you indicate that a piece of evidence was read, write a description or a short blurb about what that evidence did. Typically, it's going to be about, like, in this case, it's about how they're losing $233,000. Yeah. If you have the time, you can, once again, if you have the time, it's great to write down the specific numbers. That can be useful for like weighing. Let's say you're saying you're gonna gain $500,000. They're saying you lose 233. Then you can just do simple math weighing and be like 500 greater than 233, net gain. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to write down isn't the number, it's the fact that you're just losing money, I guess in this case, or like it's draining money. So like you can literally, like, it's great that she has all that information, but if you had no time whatsoever, you could have just written drain and then just a couple dollar signs, and that would have had the same like message, right? And then moving on, there's another piece of evidence, and yeah, I'm not going to try to read that, but either way, there's a piece of evidence, it's indicated, and then there's a quick jot on like what that said. Pennsylvania
Negative.
negative.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so the whole point is like, just to summarize, because it's like basically you want to get down get down evidence and get down the information, and you see like a lot of what I write don't make sense to you if you're reading it, because the whole point isn't to make everything make sense like grammatically and whatever. You want to be able to use shorthand. You want to be able to write just simple like keywords that to you make sense, or you recognize, or you understand. So like the key point is to like really shorthand everything to as simple as you can, because I understand what like recouping 44 to 66% means and what Pennsylvania negative is, because I've done the research, or like understand the argument. So like just remember, don't write complete like phrases or sentences. Like that's big no. And then write to like 2 to 3 words at most for each thing. As long as you can understand it, that's really all you need.
Mm-hmm. And I think we should probably do this for some like later meeting. We don't have this ready right now, but Karina, I think we should make like a list of common shorthands just so like it's easier, right? Yeah. But a good couple, like, this really saves you a lot of time. Just draw a bunch of arrows. Like an up arrow means an increase, a down arrow means a loss. Like those are just easy ways to just reduce the amount of words you have to write with something that's quicker to write down. Okay, so then I guess this contention had 2 links. So there's a second link about school closures. And here, I think Karina, I'm guessing this is a study from 2006 to 2014, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, sometimes you won't have the time to get an author, you'll just have a date of the study. In terms of studies, it's good to know things like from when to when it was, because something might have changed after 2014 or 2019, whatever that number is. But once again, the most important thing to write down in the case of a study is not the statistic, it's not when it was, but why the thing is happening. I don't know exactly what the why here is.
The why is like the entire contention. It's basically saying that like the funding thing.
Okay,
it's like
cool. Yeah.
Funding. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They named us 2 links, but it's really like one contention.
Okay, so then it's just okay. So this is a weird case. So I guess not the most optimal organization from the opponent's part, but at the end of I guess the purpose of the study in this case was just the statistic of 37% failure. So this is also where you have to like kind of like think and be like, what is the purpose of this piece of evidence, and just write down the purpose, right? Write down what the opponents were trying to do. And then after that, you'll notice there's an exclamation mark. That's the indicator for an impact. I use an I, same thing, whatever. And student achievements, once again, for impacts, a lot of these are going to be nebulous. Like they're not going to be clear and concise. They're going to be things like people will die, or the world will warm, or
Poverty will decrease in the
Poverty will decrease by 20%.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, right? Like,
Yes.
sure, okay. So what? Like, what does that mean for me? Like, I don't know. Poverty decreases by 20% in, like, Venezuela. Great. That's a big impact if you're talking about Venezuela. But what if it's about, like, Western Africa? Like, people pull a bunch of weird and shady things with the
Yeah.
impact. So you just want
So
to
like
make
when
sure
you're
you listen.
writing, when you're writing down the impact, like when you're flowing, make sure you flow like the most important point of the impact, and you can like definitely point it out if you think an impact doesn't make sense. Like so you can use like different colored pens to write like an exclamation mark or like a question mark or like circle it or something like that, which is like all good ways for flowing. Like really the key part is just to keep it short, keep it concise, keep it small, and use a lot of symbols and shorthands for like what you're writing down when you're taking notes.
I'm assuming that it's cheating to. Okay, I saw this on TikTok as a hack for like taking notes, but I'm pretty sure you probably wouldn't be allowed in debate, right? But so
What is it?
your opponent, they're talking, and then you like go to Word or wherever, and then you turn on the function where it listens and then types out what's being said. That's cheating, right?
That's not gonna work out. I would
Yeah,
never
it's not.
do that because one, people sound terrible, so Word will not recognize what the heck they're saying.
Yeah.
Because and this is especially true with like statistics and certain words. Like Word is great at picking up like normal conversation, but debate isn't normal conversation. There's a lot of words that are used that are like would never be said outside of debate,
And
which
the
is
way
why
it's being said too, like the different
right,
emphasis,
right.
it's all really weird.
Yeah. And like if they're a good speaker, maybe Word might pick it up. Like for example, like whatever. Like if they're a good speaker, maybe it'll work, but 95% of the time they're not going to be great speakers and Word's going to epically fail. So it's not a hack, it's a way to lose the debate
Yeah.
round.
And like the problem is even if Word gets everything down word by word, like verbatim, no error at all, it doesn't help you at all because you're not understanding the case, right? Like when they're saying it, the whole point of notes is one, like for you to further digest it, but two, organize it in your own way so that it makes sense to you. Like if I have this like Word document now in front of me with like 750 words, like when I'm giving my speech and I need to reference, say the link, I won't even know where the link is because I just see a bunch of like words in front of me, right? So that's why flowing and the organization, the structure, the shorthands, the like symbols are so important because see now if you look at my flow and I'm like giving my rebuttal, I can just draw a clear arrow from the link to know that, hey, I'm responding to the link, or draw a clear arrow from like the exclamation mark to know, hey, look, I'm responding to the impact. But you can't do that with Word. So you also really need like each speech on paper so we can draw stuff for the next speech to cross-reference.
Right, right. Like like Karina mentioned, especially if you're a second speaker, you want to have a decent flow of the case because when you're giving the rebuttal, it's really helpful for the judge if you say starting on their first contention, my opponent's first argument talks about how they're taking away money. Well, I have a couple of responses to this. That and then like you see what I'm saying? Like if you have nice notes, then you can like guide the judge through what you're responding to. Okay. But in terms of just the case, aside from the things to do which are going to be like abbreviate things, shorthand things and just get down the logic, like the whys and how, things you want to look for in the case, because if you're a first speaker, you need to be ready for the first crossfire. And there's a couple things that you want to look for. The very first thing and the most important thing you want to look for is jumps in logic. So let's say um, an example of this would be I'm not going to use the charter schools thing because that's confusing for me. Let's talk about so for Africa, let's say somebody makes the argument if you build more roads, there's going to be more jobs, so there's going to be less poverty in Africa. That sounds fine on paper, but in reality, there's a big jump in logic from there just being roads being built to more jobs being created, because for all we know, those roads could be built by like other
Immigrants.
workers.
Yeah,
Or like in case of China, China literally contracts out Chinese people to go to other countries to build their roads.
and also recognize that like building roads is a very short-term job.
Right.
All it does is it displaces more people from like employment after the roads are done.
So like the opponents are gonna package it and make it sound great. They're gonna be like, there's gonna be a 30% drop in unemployment by within a year. And if you ask them questions like, how long will this take? They'll say, oh, it's immediate. The moment you start making roads, everybody gets employed. But the question you really have to ask is, how long will those jobs stay there? Like Karina just said. That's like kind of just basic jumps in logic. There's going to be a lot more of those, and we can talk more about this. There's a bunch of drills we could do with that. But the second most important thing you want to look for is the why. Like why they say something is happening. For example, they say taking away money is bad. But let's say, I am sure the opponent said it in this debate, let's say they never mentioned why taking money away is bad. Then you have to ask for that in Crossfire, or you have to point out that they never say why this thing is bad. And a lot of people will do that. They'll say, what a common argument like that always happens is like Chinese hegemony bad, but like they'll say China is going to expand, China is going to do all of these things, but they'll never say why China is especially bad. Right? Like you want to know the why. The third, I'm going to switch these. Okay, the third thing you want to look for is just the big picture, the big argument that's being like, what is this contention doing? Like some contentions are specifically made to counter other contentions that you might be reading. A common example of this would be like, one team says a recession will happen. The other team says we'll stop a recession. Like, do you see how those might like directly clash against each other? You want to identify like the big picture. Like, what is the main purpose of them reading this contention? And finally, and the easiest thing to do really is just things that sound weird. Like,
For example, I say that like spending 1 year in a charter school closes the achievement gap between like minority races by a third each year. Then it's like, well, then by the third year, shouldn't I have like zero achievement gap? But then you want to question like how is that like really true, right? Like if all inequality can be stopped within 3 years in a single charter school, doesn't that sound kind of weird?
Yeah, like things that sound too good to be true is typically what you want to like that fall under this category. Whenever the opponent says something that sounds really good, but like you're like, can that really happen? Like for example, they say, "Oh, we'll solve climate change." Can you really do that? Probably not. So you can ask about those things. Okay, I have to go.
And the reason why you like why keeping in mind things to look for while you're taking notes is so you can incorporate into your notes. I don't do it on this flow because like it's like more mental for me now because but basically like you want to draw like question marks, you want to circle stuff, you might want to highlight stuff, you might want to leave just like spots blank. Like for example, like what Evan was saying, like for the school closures, if I never get a why, I might leave a blank spot there. So I know, hey, there's a part of this argument in terms of logic that's missing.
Right. So like, what you could do.
Sorry.
I have to go though. I have to go, so I'm just gonna dip. All right, see you guys. It was nice talking to you. I don't know if I'll be talking to you guys again next week, but see ya.
You better, Evan. I swear to God, if you don't show up.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so the reason why it's like really important to know is because you want to digest the arguments. That's why it's so much easier for you to flow, like for you to take such short notes because you like really understand it, right? So like when you know all the things to look for, then when you take notes, like you should have like a mental skeleton within your brain already, and the notes should just fill up the like bits and pieces of that skeleton on paper. But the big skeleton, which has all the things you should look for, is within your head. Does that make sense?
That makes
Yeah, okay. Do you guys have any other questions? I know like that was a long explanation, but we weren't sure how much y'all knew, but it was pretty explanatory and covering I think everything, but it's honestly just practice. Like I'll admit I didn't really know how to flow until like my second or third year of debate. So don't worry if any of that seemed a bit overwhelming or confusing. Like it's all just practice and experience. So do you guys have any other questions or anything you need help with? Okay. Oh, review summary? Yeah. Um, okay, brief review. I have like an entire summary speech like presentation I can send to you afterwards. It's just like Google Slides, but a brief review is just that. Sorry, hold on, give me a second. Summary is 3 minutes long. It's used to, yeah, hold on. Let me just share my screen. I feel like this would be easier. Okay, summaries is 3 minutes long. It's used to focus the debates. You want to extend key arguments. And any argument that's in final focus must be brought up in summary. And you want to extend your arguments by re-explaining it to the judge. You re-explain and focus the main idea. So like say I have a uniqueness, a link, and an impact. I probably want to explain all of those just really quick. And what you want to do is you want to frontline your opponent's responses, meaning that you want to respond to any responses they put on it. Collapsing, so you need to choose like 1 or 2 arguments to go for. You really want to choose just one, and your whole summary needs like a thesis. It really needs a main why or like how I can vote for you. It needs a clear narrative. Like say my entire narrative is climate change bad, then I might have like a lot of like all of my arguments on my opponent's case and my own arguments should all fall within why climate change is bad, right? And why you should vote for me if you do believe climate change is bad, which just comes to the weighing part of like comparing your arguments against your opponent's best arguments, and explain to the judge, hey, if you buy my argument, this is why you should vote for me, either because my impacts are bigger, my impacts are more severe, my impacts come first, my impacts come sooner, or my impacts are more probable. And your priorities, you always don't want to talk about your own case first. You definitely want to weigh, but you also want to extend some like defense on their case, meaning that you want to explain why the judge can't vote for them. So like the briefest explanation of summary is you want to think of a narrative first. Then you want to re-explain your own arguments and explain it in a way that interacts with the offense already put on it from your opponents or like the arguments put on it. So you just want to extend your case, you want to weigh, and then you want to explain why the judge can't vote for the opponent's case by like extending arguments on their case. Won't it be repetitive? So no, it would not be repetitive because you are trying to extend it, right? You're trying to make an extension, which means it should be, your entire case should be 5 minutes. Let's say you have 2 contentions. You're spending 2 minutes on each contention. Your contention should be 5 to 15 seconds at most long, which means you're cutting that down by like to what, like 1/8 of what it was. And you want to explain it in a way that it interacts, because by the time of your summary, your opponents are going to have attacked your contention, right? So I have a very simple argument. I say, don't build more roads because building roads equals releasing CO2, which like makes climate change worse. My opponents might say, well, building roads like building roads won't add that much CO2, right? So when I'm re-explaining my argument, I'll say, Judge, today you're voting for me because you worsen climate change. You do this because the AF builds roads, and this releases CO2. Even though my opponents say that like road building doesn't release that much CO2, the release of CO2 still worsens climate change regardless, right? Which means that at the end of the day, you'll be seeing climate change being accelerated, and this matters the most, and here's where I would weigh, right? I would say like climate change is irreversible. It damages like property, it takes human lives, blah, blah, blah. So when you're re-explaining it, you have to explain it in a new way that interacts with what your opponents have said, because the judge might not have understood it or bought your argument when you read it in case. So in summary, you want to be able to explain it in a new way, but still keeping the same narrative. But the most important part is just to interact with the doubt that your opponent puts on your case. And for weighing, if you chose a very sketchy source but with large numbers and impacts. Okay, well, don't choose a sketchy source. That would be like my first advice. But your impact at the end of the day is just still large numbers and impacts, right? We call those big stick impacts. You can weigh those in scope, like, wow, look at how big my number is. You can weigh it in severity. You can also weigh it in like a lot of other ways. Like what I would say is that it doesn't matter if you have a sketchy source if your opponent doesn't realize it's a sketchy source. Like if they don't point it out, then you basically get like a freebie card. Like that's literally like the best scenario you can have, right? So then you can weigh, like the easiest way to weigh then it would just be scope and severity. But then weighing goes beyond just like how large your number is. You can weigh it on like its entire impact, right? Like say I was talking about climate change. My like opponent doesn't contend that I solve climate change, and my impact is 100 million people will be displaced because of climate change. Then I can say, okay, well, you're talking about poverty, right? But when people are displaced, like of course they're going to be in worse poverty. It might even be cyclical poverty. There might be crowding of jobs, of unemployment, of all these bad things. So I can say that not only is my impact bigger, more severe, it also like prereqs your impact because I specifically worsen your impact. Can you like do you see how this would be more powerful? Like you're talking about A, but I'm like but my impacts link into both A and B, and it worsens your impact. So like that's the kind of way you want to be doing. Of course. Do you guys have any other questions? Or like if you need help with like case or anything, I can look over any arguments y'all have written if you need. Okay, cool. Unless you guys want to do some drills, which I would be fine with. Yeah, of course. So unless you guys want to do drills, I think we can call it a day. But do you guys want to do drills? It's totally okay if you do or don't. I'm fine with either. It's just all up to you guys. Okay, cool. No, it wasn't a waste of my time at all, so don't worry. But yeah, it was good to talk to you guys. I hope you guys got some stuff out of that. If you have any questions, feel free to like message me on Teams. Wait, I'm the essay. Wait, hold on. Don't worry, just like message anywhere in the like Teams. But here, I'll put my Instagram here. So if you guys have any questions, like now or later on, like from any time in the future, you can just message me, DM me on Instagram. That's my Instagram account, so feel free to DM me on that if you guys have any questions. Other than that, cool. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.